Make way for ducklings. Mr. and Mrs. Mallard were looking for a place to live, but every time Mr. Mallard saw what he looked like, a nice place, Mr. Mallard said it was no good. There were sure to be foxes in the woods or turtles in the water, and she was not going to raise a family where there might be foxes or turtles. So they flew on and on. When they got to Boston, they felt too tired to fly any further. There was a nice pond in the public garden with a little island on it. The very place to spend the night, quacked Mr. Mallard. So down they flapped. Next morning, they fished for their breakfast in the mud at the bottom of the pond, but they didn't find much. Just as they were getting ready to start on their way, a strange, enormous bird came by. It was pushing a boat full of people, and there was a man sitting on its back. "Good morning," quacked Mr. Mallard. Being polite, the big bird was too proud to answer, but the people in the boat threw peanuts into the water. So Mr. Mallard followed them all round the pond and got another breakfast better than the first. "I like this place," says Mr. Mallard, as they climbed out on the bank and waddled along. "Why don't you build a nest to raise our duckling right in this pond? There are no foxes and no turtles, and the people fed us peanuts. What could be better?" "Good," said Mr. Mallard, delighted as at last Mrs. Mallard had found a place that is suited for her. But "Look out," quacked Mr. Mallard. Olive did her. "You'll get run over." And when she got her breath, she added, "This is no place for babies. With all those horrid things rushing about, we'll have to look somewhere else." So they flew over Beacon Hill and round the State House, but there was no place there. They looked in Louisburg Square, but there was no water to swim in. Then they flew over Charles Rivers. There was better, quacked Mr. Mallard. "This island looks nice, quiet place, and it's only a little way from the public garden." "Yes," said Mrs. Mallard, remembering the peanuts, "that looks just right place to hatch ducklings." But of course they could swim, and one day they swam over the park on the riverbank, and there they met a policeman called Michael. Michael fed them peanuts, and after that, the Mallards called on Michael every day. After Mrs. Mallard had laid 8 eggs in the nest, she couldn't go visit Michael anymore because she had to sit on the eggs to keep them warm. She moved off the nest only to get a drink of water, or to have her lunch, or to count the eggs and make sure they were all there. One day the ducklings hatched out. First came Jack, then Cack, then Lack, then Mack, and Knack, and Quack, and Pack, and Quack. Mr. and Mr. Mallard were bursting with pride. It was a great responsibility taking care of so many ducklings, and it kept them very busy. One day, Mr. Mallard decided he would like to take a trip to see what the rest of the river was like. Further on, so off he set. "I'll meet you in a week in Public Garden," he quacked over his shoulder. "Take good care of the ducklings." "Don't you worry," said Mr. Mallard. "I know all about bringing up children." And she did. She taught them how to swim and dive. She taught them how to walk in line, come when they were called, and to keep a safe distance from bikes and scooters and other things with wheels. When she last felt perfectly satisfied with them, she said one morning, "Come along, children, follow me." Before you could wink an eyelash, Jack, Cack, Whack, Mack, Knack, Quack, Pack, and Quack fell into line just as they had been taught. Mr. Millard led them the way to the water, and they swam behind her to the opposite bank. There they waddled ashore, waddled along until they came to the highway. Mrs. Mollard stepped out across the road. Honk, honk went the horns of the speeding cars. Quack went Mr. Mollard as she tumbled back again. Quack, 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 quack went Jack, Cat, Clack, Mack, and Knack. Quack, pack, and quack, just as loud as their little quackers could quack. The cars kept speeding by and honking. Mrs. Millard and Ducklings kept right up quacking, quack, and quack. They made such a noise that Michael came running, waving his arms and blowing his whistle. He planted himself in the center of the road. He raised one hand to stop the traffic, and then he beckoned with one other the policeman do. Mr. Waller to cross over. As soon as Mr. Mollard and the Ducklings were safe on the other side on their way down Mount Vernon Street, Michael rushed back to the police booth. They called Clancy at the headquarters and said, "There's a family of ducks walking down the street." Clancy said, "Family of what?" "Ducks," yelled Michael. "Send a police car, quick." Meanwhile, Mrs. Mollard reached the corner bookshop and turned into the Charles Street with Jack, Cack, Lack, Mack, Knack, Quack, Pack, and Quack, all marching in line behind her. Everyone stared. An old lady from Beacon Street said, "Isn't this amazing?" And the man who swept the streets said, "Well, now, ain't that nice?" When Mrs. Mollard heard them, she was so proud, and she tipped her nose in the air and walked along with extra swing in her waddle. When they came to the corner of Beacon Street, there was police cars with policemen, and Clancy had sent from headquarters. The policeman held back the traffic to Mrs. Mollard, and Ducklings could march across the street. Right on, the public garden. Inside the gate, they all turned around to say thank you to the policeman. The policeman smiled and waved goodbye. When they reached the pond and swam across to the little island, there was Mr. Mollard waiting for them, just as he promised. The Ducklings liked the new island so much that they decided to live there. All day long, they followed the swan boats and eat peanuts. And then one night, the falls, they swim into their little island and they go to sleep. The end.